Hey guys! What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the next game review, and for today's particular game, this game caught my eye. I want to say it was back in 2023 when it was announced during Summer Game Fest. And for today's review, I'm going to be talking about South of Midnight. South of Midnight was developed by Compulsion Games. Now, if you don't know this particular developer, you may know a previous game that they had developed and released, a game called We Happy Few. We Happy Few was a game that I think had a lot of promise, and it was a game that definitely had its moments, and the concept of the game was really cool, but the execution, if you ask me, was kind of all over the place. But I will say that the game definitely had its moments. In South of Midnight, you play as a character known as Hazel, a girl who at the start of the game gets into a pretty heated argument with her mother as they're trying to prepare to evacuate in the wake of an approaching hurricane. However, and unfortunately, when Hazel is trying to warn her neighbors of this approaching storm, her mother, while in their home, gets waved away and swept away by the storm. And while Hazel is trying to rescue her mother, she gets pulled into the Southern Gothic reality where floorcore creatures emerge. And in order to escape this reality and to save her mother, Hazel must become a weaver, a magical mender of broken bonds and spirits. Like I had mentioned to you all earlier, this is a game that I've had my eyes on since 2023, and the primary reason why this game caught my attention, as y'all can imagine from the footage that you're seeing here, which by the way was captured from an Xbox Series X, this game caught my attention simply because of the art direction and the animation style. I loved how this game looked, and the fact that the cutscenes were kind of driven in this lower frame rate for the characters, but the world was moving in a higher frame rate, and plus the fact that it had this very gothic feel to it with folklore creatures. I mean, knowing me, guys, as a person that's obsessed with gothic stuff and folklore and legends and all that kind of stuff, this is a game that definitely had my attention, even though, and unfortunately, I know this would be put out in the comments because this game unfortunately had some help from a particular and a very controversial studio, which I will not go into because I want to spend my time talking about a game that, spoiler alert, I really liked. Now, with all that being said, guys, let's get into the reasons why I think that South of Midnight is a good game. Going on to the first thing that I loved about this game, as y'all can imagine, is the art direction and the color palette of this game. South of Midnight is a gorgeous, I mean, this game is a gorgeous looking game, and the animation style, the characters, and not to mention the level design of South of Midnight. This game is such a gorgeous looking game, and it's a fun world to explore. There are a couple of chapters in the game into which I spent more time than I expected, really, just exploring the levels, and in particular, there is a part later in the game that I thought how the levels were designed here were just so creative, so unique, and once again, the colors of this game just balance. I am fully well aware that we are still pretty early on in the year, even though we're almost halfway through the year, but you guys get my point. South of Midnight, I think, is an incredible looking game, and I do think that it will be one of the most interesting and one of the most creative looking games of the entire year. There were plenty of times that throughout this game that I wish I had a photo mode, because man, there were so many times where I would have just hit pause, gone to a photo mode, and would have taken some great images, some great screenshots, great photos, because there are so many environments and vistas, and seeing how the light goes into buildings, how it reflects off of objects in the game. It is such a great looking game, just really a beautiful looking game. Something else in particular that I loved about this game is that it's just oozing with personality, charm, and style. From the opening cinematic, this is a game that has such a personality to it, and such a style to it. It has such a charm to it that I just thought this game just felt very unique and just very, very original. But for how this game focuses on just this gothic world rooted in the American South with folklore elements, South of Midnight just has such a great personality and a great style that if you do have it on Game Pass, guys, or if you just have Game Pass in general, give it a shot. It's actually a really fun game. Another element in particular that I loved about this game was the music, the soundtrack of this game. South of Midnight has such an awesome musical score, and not to mention as well, it's a very creative musical score, especially in how it's used with the boss battles. In particular, the very first boss battle against an alligator. This boss, along with the music, made for such a fun and a charming fight, and not to mention as well, going on to another particular track involving a character named Huggin' Molly. This track I thought was so freaking good, and by the way, I might as well talk about this as well really quick. This game has great and fun boss battles. There is a boss in this game that I absolutely loved, and the culmination, the end of this particular boss battle, I thought was so much fun, and it did lead to a really genuinely great story moment. That leads me on to the last thing that I want to mention, is that this game has a really good story rooted in trauma, stigma, and not to mention as well, and let's just say dark things that this game does touch upon. South of Midnight genuinely has some great smaller character-driven moments. There is a sweet, such a sweet and a heartful moment between Hazel and her mother near the end of the game that genuinely almost got me. I thought this game was going to end in this big grand way, and I'm kind of glad that it didn't, because what we got for an ending for this game I thought was really well done.
Ah! God damn it!
But unfortunately, South of Midnight does have its fair share of issues that hold it back from what it could have been a great game. Going into easily my biggest criticism with this game, and that's the combat. South of Midnight's combat is unfortunately very basic and very repetitive. This particular thing shocked me quite a bit, because if you guys have played this game has been out for about 10 days, I want to say a little over a week now at this point. You all know that you do get experience points into which you can put these upgrades into Hazel's character, but the upgrades don't really come as often as you'd think. You have to explore to get what they call, I believe, as floofs, rather than beating enemies to get experience points. But when you beat enemies, when you have very low health, you get barely any health back. But that's just, I could kind of go on to a tangent about this, but besides all that, guys, but after some time, it's just kind of a boring structure at some times, and not to mention as well, that leads me to something else that I found to be actually very frustrating about the combat. At random times, there are these insane difficulty spikes where at nowhere, it just feels like it's just throwing a gauntlet at you. In particular, later in the game, it's just throwing so much at you. And to be fair, the checkpoint system is fair, and it's not like you're starting off very low health every time you die in the game. Out of nowhere, you'll be in a fight that does seem fairly challenging, but then out of nowhere, the game just throws so much crap at you to the point where it just seems very unfair. Even in situations where you know you have gone out of a dodge, out of a hitbox of a certain area, and yet you still get an insane amount of health being taken off. And the last thing that I gotta talk about is that after quite some time, every section of the game when you're supposed to go to pretty much is the same in terms of structure. Like, guys, no joke. Here's the basic structure of the game. Get stigma or bottling negative emotions, putting these things into a bottle, fighting monsters, and then followed by a run segment, a chase segment. That is literally the structure of the entire game right there in a nutshell. It's pretty much rinse and repeat of the same thing. Now, I will say this much and to give some leeway here. How the levels are designed, I felt did just enough so that it didn't feel like the same repetitive process. But as I got further in the game, this structure did feel very noticeable to the point where I was just like, okay, I kind of get the point of the game now. Go do this, go do this, go do this. Run away from a monster, rinse and repeat. It's pretty much the same in every single level. So overall, even though I do have my issues, South of Midnight is a good game. It has gorgeous art direction, great boss battles, awesome music, but most importantly, a really good story at its center. All in all, I'm gonna give South of Midnight a 7 out of 10. South of Midnight has its issues, but guys, if you have Game Pass, I suggest trying this game at least once. It is a good game that I do think is at least one playthrough. It's a good time, guys. And that is gonna wrap things up for my review of South of Midnight. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If so, please hit the like button, or if you dislike this review, hit the dislike button. If you guys want to see in my previous 2 videos, please click to the left or right side of the screen. And of course, the time my next review or video goes live. I will see you all next time.
Explains why you dress like that.
Whatever. She's just trying to help me.
Right. Because Bunny's known for giving you a helping hand.
This is different.
I saw how she treated you and Lacey.
And how did you treat Mom?